What's up, people? Welcome to this episode of the By the Hood podcast / webcast, because I don't know how you're consuming this content. I'm your host, as always. My name is Jimmy. And as we start off every show, just want to say special thanks to everybody out there who's helped supporting the movement. We appreciate that. Anybody who's purchased the merch, because we see the merch is flying off the shelves. We appreciate that. Love y'all all, man, because the followers are growing. People are sharing the content, and we appreciate that. As always, I got my co-host Corey in the building. Corey, how are you, sir?
Man, I'm living life, man. I'm glad to be living during these crazy times, man.
Yeah, we living through some crazy times, man. You know, the one thing I can say about what's going on in the world is, like, I'm learning a lot, not just about myself, but about people, seeing how they handling this situation. I noticed also how people can't, like, stay inside. It's crazy to me, but some people, have to get out the crib. It's interesting times, man. But you learn a lot about people and about yourself. But everybody knows our platform is to highlight brothers and sisters who are doing amazing work in the community, building businesses, giving back, educating folks. And we have a very special guest, man. This is a brother who I follow on Twitter, man, and he goes in. That's all I can say, man. So if you don't do anything else after this episode, make sure you go follow his Twitter, because he's comical, he's informative, and he gives out a lot of game. I love when he goes through those things. He gives you a history of something and gives you, like, the multiple chain posts. So after reading several of them, I start conversating with him, like, yo, we got to get you on this podcast because you're educating the folks. But he's also a hustler, man. He calls himself a sock broker. My man sells socks, soap. He's an author of a couple books, Black America Inc., A $1 Trillion Nation, and also Stop Being Poor. That's right. One of his books is literally called Stop Being Poor. So without further ado, I want to introduce the brother, Doe Doobs, a.k.a. A.R. Morton. What's going on, brother? How you?
Yo, man. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, man. Thank you for that illustrious introduction. I always love that, man. I appreciate when people are in tune with my work and what I do, and appreciate what I do. So, man, shout out to y'all. Thank y'all for having me. And I can't wait to get it on, man.
Absolutely, man. So, before we get started, give us a little bit about your background. Where are you from? I know you're in Philly now, but where are you from and how'd you get to Philly?
Yeah, so I'm very nomadic. Just origin. My mom's and our family moved around a lot. So I'm from Long Island, New York, Nassau County. You know what I'm saying? And then around 2002, 2003, we moved to Providence, Rhode Island, and I stayed out there for a few years. And then we moved to Raleigh, North Carolina, and then we lived throughout North Carolina for a few years. And then recently. Well, not recently, a few years ago, I say 2013, I moved to Philadelphia, and I've been here ever since. So, yeah, I move around a lot. I don't plan on being in Philadelphia too much longer, so I'm pretty sure I'm going to move from here, too. Probably, I was thinking probably like Maryland or Jersey or something like that, you know what I mean? But, yeah, so that's my background as far as location. But as far as just my vocation, as far as, like, how I got to this point, I've been an entrepreneur since, a preteen, starting out in middle school, selling, the CDs, when you had the CD burners and stuff like that. I was selling them mixtapes and stuff like that.
That was a hustle.
On T-shirts. I worked at a local clothing store in Providence. So I got a lot of real sales experience because I was on commission. I started working there when I was about 13, and by 15, I had the key to the store. I was actual manager. I was actually telling other adults what to do at 15. It was actually one of the reasons why I rejected public school. Like, I would cut school to go to work. Like, I would literally not go to the ninth grade. Like, out of the 180 days in my ninth grade year, I only went to school for 30 of them, and I was scattered throughout the entire year. Because
that sound like Corey. Like me and Corey.
I went to work.
Yeah, me and Corey both were the central here, man. But I don't think I've ever seen him in the classroom.
But I had learned so much more at the store, so I would go. I used to fake my mom's out, of course. I wake up, get my book bag and all that. And the store was around the corner from my house. So I would, have my book bag on, go to McDonald's or something like that, have breakfast, fake my mom out, and then go to work. And I would open up the store at 9 o'clock, and I would, she knew that I went to work after the school, but she didn't know I was going to work all day. So I worked from 9 to 9 from age 14 to like 17. I worked, and I pretty much had a full-time job since I was a kid working at this clothing store. And I learned so much because all of my sales were commission. So I was able to get sales, and I was able to understand, putting clothes together, and being able to engage customers, having proper customer service. And the owner, he's like my OG. I call him my OG. He taught me a lot. Like, he was the guy that was one of the first people to expose me to real Black American history, as far as the millionaires and the lawyers and all of the entrepreneurs of the time back then. You feel me? Whether it be somewhere as close as the 80s or somewhere as far back as the 1600s. You feel me?
I guess that was important in your growing, right? Is learning that
absolutely
people that look like you, yeah.
Right.
So that's kind of why we had this platform, because we have these we have these people today that the average person doesn't even know about, right? So how that help you in terms of your growth?
It allowed me to know that it wasn't the bill of sale that I was being taught through mass media or even the classroom. Because you'll every February we get the same thing. We get Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Rosa Parks, you know what I'm saying, Montgomery, civil rights, and then we out of here, right? But then you don't know about Samuel B. Fuller. You don't understand that, without a Black man, the traffic light wouldn't be around. Without a Black man from Nigeria, the internet as we know it wouldn't be a thing. Like, you don't get to, Mansa Musa, like all of the fun history. We only get slavery. We only get Jim Crow. We only get Black codes. We only get discrimination. And what happens is, if you start telling the youth that at a real young age, that's what they aspire to be. But if you start telling somebody like me when I was 14 years old that you could be a millionaire, or you could be a leader, or you could be a lawyer, you could do all of these things, and here are the examples of real life people, real successful people who changed laws, who changed the lives of people. We established entire towns, let alone a community or a block. You feel me? Like, we were establishing entire municipalities at one point, all for the greater good of our own communities. And when you don't know these things, you don't think it's possible. You think buying the block is one of the most craziest things that you can do. But when you learn from 13 years old that people were buying not blocks, but entire towns, buying the block becomes way more tangible to you as a youngin'. So learning from these people, getting all of this real history, I didn't buy that whole inferior or buy into that inferior complex that a lot of my peers, even my classmates, would have. You feel me? So because of that, it made it easier for me to believe conspiracy theories. It made me more susceptible to believe in the truth about certain things, even though it sounded like the first time I heard it, as far as like the original classroom public school version, it sounded good, but it at least made me want to believe something else. Like, I remember, like, when 9/11 first happened, I was 11 years old, but I remember this, like, the energy around it, like, not believing what the TV told me to believe. And I remember all of that stuff. So all of that stuff to that point as a kid made me more susceptible to wanting to know the real truth. And it made me more susceptible to not want to believe the lies that was told to me on a more mass scale. And then from there,
it's good mentorship right there. It makes you question.
You shout out to Hev, man. Shout out to Hev.
Shout out to Hev. I don't know you, but shout out to you anyway, because that's what it's about, man. Like, it's about that, but then paying it forward. So, like, now you're in a position where you could do that for someone else, because it's always good to question things, man. That's how you learn. You learn by questioning things.
Absolutely. He was the one that made me susceptible to Hotep. As you know, I'm president of the Hotep Nation. It's like my third year running. I'm proud of my nation. We're doing great things. We got Hotep Con coming up, you know what I'm saying, May 1st and 2nd. So we're taking this entire nation by storm by understanding the real truth about where we come from, where we're at, and where we're going to go. All of these things, the atrocities happen. We're never going to negate that. As a matter of fact, we keep the atrocities in the history. We don't negate them. We actually keep them there to remind ourselves what can happen if we don't protect ourselves. What can happen if we're not, militant and diligent about making sure we protect our women and children. We keep that data there, but we just don't expound on it to the point that that's our identity. We identify ourselves by our oppression. We identify ourselves by our shortcomings or the things that mess us up in life. You feel me? We don't identify as that, but we understand it, and we acknowledge that it happened, and we do things in the present to make sure it doesn't happen again in the future.
And you're solutions based too. You're solutions based, which I appreciate.
100%.
I see a lot of people, like, the woe is me crowd, like, sit around and cry about things, like, and your thing is, all right, they exist, but now what we gonna do? You know what I mean? Like,
because in life, that's what it is. When people were telling me about, like, one of the bigger examples, that they use, of course, is that they burned down Black Wall Street, right? why would we do that again if they burnt it down? And it's like, whenever in your own personal life something has happened, I would hope that you rebuild, that you would go back and, go to, if you got fired from a job, that doesn't mean that you have a lifetime of unemployment. If you, broke up with a girlfriend or a boyfriend, that doesn't mean you're going to be single for the rest of your life. If you get evicted, that's not mean you're going to just be homeless for your rest of life. All of these things happen to me. I was evicted during the housing crisis. I've gotten, I've broken up with a girlfriend before. Heart was hurting, all this other stuff. I've taken losses before, but that didn't stop me. That wasn't the state of what I was going to be in for the rest of my life. So when people bring up, Black Wall Street, the reason why it's so egregious is because people don't understand that Black Wall Street rebuilt and thrived for 40 more years.
They never tell that story. They never tell that part of the story, right?
And this is what I'm saying. Like, this is why I have to make sure that Hotep and all of the things that we're doing is pushed to the forefront, because too many Black children specifically, like the adults, you got to come into your own knowledge, and that's up to you. You feel me? A child doesn't have that choice. A child has to be taught things. So it has to be up to the smart adults, or the ones that are conscious enough to tell them the truth about what really happened, so they don't fall for those same psychological, physical, and financial traps. That you don't need to accelerate your life through bad debt. That you don't need to succumb to a white man or a white woman's whim because you feel inferior, as far as your skin, or you feel like they're superior to you, or you feel like what they have is better than yours because they're white. We're dispelling all of that garbage, because that's what impeded on a lot of progress, that we felt like we needed to be adjacent or as close to white people in proximity as possible to be successful.
That sound like you, Core. That's what you talk about. All they talk about
the proximity to whiteness is a thing that I talk about in great detail when I talk privately. You just talking about it more publicly than I do, but that drives me. That drives me absolutely.
It drives him insane, because what you realize is some people want to be their oppressor. Like, they don't really want to, move forward. They're just trying to be the oppressor themselves.
It's a psychological thing. I've been fortunate enough to have more of a 360 view growing up. So I grew up in the hood, but then I also spent a considerable amount of time in predominantly white neighborhoods, living amongst this community of people. And I saw the other Black children in those communities not be able to deal with their identity as well as some kids in the urban sector, just because there's more people in the urban sector that are like-minded and do things on a cultural level. So what happens is, when you are the single kid out, you're one of the only other 10 Black kids in the school, the entire school body, you become an anomaly. You become a thing where these kids are able to use you as a portal to the community. And then now you're put up in a space to where you actually feel a little bit more special now. You the big fish in a small pond, because you special. You an alien. You feel me? It's like, so what happens is, the more and more social, I guess cultural cues that certain things have. That's where you get like the Scooby-Doo Halloween pictures where the Black girl is Scooby and stuff like that. Like, that stuff becomes more acceptable because the majority of the people there don't see any racism or don't see any offense about it, as opposed, if you were to do that in a more predominantly Black area, we when you put it on Twitter, we react immediately. Oh, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So what happens is, all of that becomes like the price to pay to be associated with this success. You feel me? Like, I have to go through a little bit of humiliation. I have to.
It's crazy.
Dig down.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
So
but it's a fact, though. I see what you're saying.
That they make for what they perceive to be, proximity to success. So what we're doing is we're dispelling all of that stuff, because there's nothing necessarily wrong with living in the suburbs. But when you forsake who you are for what you want to be in life, that's when we have to, deviate from that and teach them, like, you can still love yourself. You can still be proud of who you are. You can still be proud of your history and still live in a nice neighborhood. You can still push the agenda of your Black community being in a better state while also being in these neighborhoods. You don't have to choose either or. It's not about that. It's about making sure that your people, your community, is in a better space. And if you are those people in those upper middle, high income spaces, I'm not saying that you got to give all your time, money, and energy to it, but if you put some little game and, put some, some message into the game, if you put something in there for people to gravitate towards, whether it be a book, you feel me, a course, something that you can, reach out for the people that so they can get to that level, you in a good space. We see that with a bunch of people on our side of Twitter. Rest in peace, Nip. That was pretty much his entire platform.
Yep.
Was that, yo, you can do it too. I did it, you can do it too. So that's what we're pushing now, is you can do it too. So right now, like I was saying on Twitter before, we're in the growing pains phase where, like you said, in pre-production, a lot of people don't really associate all of these, great wealth building strategies to the Black community. So now you have a bunch of people like, man, that ain't for us. We can't do that. They're going to burn it down. Or, it takes too much money. How you going to start a business with this much money? And you get all of these problems.
Over the last week on what I seen on Twitter is actually nuts. I'm like, people like, you just, coming the way they coming at like Black landlords and like the whole nine. Like, it's just like, whoa, what's going on here? Like,
absolutely. And when you understand the history of that, and as far as the war on poverty, the welfare state and all that, we can get into that too. I love talking about this stuff. This is the stuff that I'm passionate about because I understood the real history of it. But when it comes to the landlord versus tenant debate on Twitter, that was happening. That is when I said it on Twitter, that's when you strip a community of the concept of ownership. When you strip the idea, the risk and responsibility that comes with ownership. Because a lot of people only look at the reward. Everybody, love the quote from, Spider-Man, where a great power comes great responsibility. And it's true. So all they want to acknowledge is the power. The fact that you get to collect money every month, house hacking, your expenses are paid for. You can, buy as many properties as you want. You can invest. And theoretically, as far as, the opaque view of it is that you don't have to do nothing but sit back and collect. But they negate the risk and responsibility of that power, meaning that if anything goes wrong, there's a hole in this floor, I got to make sure that it's repaired and maintained, as far as taxes, as far as any types of liens, anything that goes into owning this property, all this stuff that I have to make sure it maintains so you can have this nice, viable roof over your head. I have to incur all of those risks. So it goes right back into that socialism, debate as far as just seize the means of production, everybody just redistribute the wealth and all of this other nonsense that we've already seen never works. And you can't name one country where it works at. They point to Denmark and all these other Scandinavian countries. All of the presidents, as far as the leaders there, say we're not a socialist country. We're a capital free market country. We just have certain social safety nets, just like America does. They just have higher tax rates, which is ridiculous. Nobody in America wants higher taxes. We don't want taxes at all. You feel me? So at the end of the day, when you start looking at these situations, when people do not understand how important it is to own what you have, to control, really. Own isn't important because I always say, you either own or you owe. So at the end of the day, you want to go from owe to own, and then you want to go from own to control.
Man, so I like that bar right there. So, you either own or you owe. That might be a title, Core.
Yeah.
you either own or you owe.
I just put that on. Either you pay like you pay or you pay like you owe.
I write that one down. You either own or you owe.
Yeah, you pay like you pay or you pay like you owe, but you gonna pay.
You gonna pay. So that's where I'm at with it. So we get from owe status to own status. Then we go from own status to control status, which is of course trust funds, asset protection. My name is not even on it. It's my trust fund owns that. That's when you get to that level. And that's where
and that's kind of what I'm trying to work on now in terms of learning that.
Right.
And learning that next step, right? So I've been able to accumulate assets over the years. Got the insurance, that whole nine. Now the next step I'm trying to learn. Because it's always a learning thing. No matter how many years, how much time you got in business, you're always learning. It's that next step. So I just read a book. It's called Family Wealth, and that's all. The Family Wealth book is all about that. How to take that next step, where it's just about control. That the idea of setting up those entities and
I mean, you got Bill Gates, Sam Walton, all of these billionaire companies, man. I mean, people, billionaires, period. That's what they do. They put their assets inside trust funds and things like that and take a small salary from from whatever equity they have and whatever assets they have. You look up Jeff Bezos' salary right now, he only makes 88 grand a year.
80 grand, yeah, 80 grand.
He only makes 88 grand a year.
I'm like, yo, I'll make more than Bezos. I ain't got his bread.
Right, exactly. And the bulk of the wealth comes from 11% of Amazon.
Yo,
you feel me? Just 11%.
It is crazy. It's crazy because I remember
people start talking about liquidating Jeff Bezos' assets and shit like that. That's why I can't get into the whole.
Yeah, I can't either, man. They talk about he's a billionaire. How can he? Like, I saw people yesterday criticizing Zuckerberg for giving $25 million. I'm like,
yeah,
and I'm like, what did you give? I ain't give nothing, but he got billions. So
and the thing is, for me, it's not even about me defending the individuals because I don't know Mark Zuckerberg because I feel like that nigga is like an alien, and I feel like. He's like diabolical. Real talk. I know I can't put my finger on it, but I wouldn't trust him. You know what I'm saying? But shout out to him for being able to do that. And I don't get into was it enough or was it not? I don't get into any of that.
Yeah, I don't pocket watch either.
That people have to be able to hold themselves accountable 10 times harder than what they would do somebody else, whether they're a celebrity or not. If you are putting it on somebody else to donate, I hope you're donating.
Exactly. And that's my whole point. That's my whole point.
To teach the community better and all of that. If you know that there is better to be taught, hopefully you're teaching that. Because you can't be like, oh, LLC Twitter, they belittle you and they don't educate you and all that other stuff. So if you know there's something to be educated on, why are you not beating us? Because when you look at us and the content that we do, we got plenty of people that say they love what we do. That's why we do it. Our follower accounts and everything like that, as far as the success that we have, they speak for that. So when we talk about the other people that say, oh, you're belittling them and all that, because we make funny jokes about people being financially illiterate and all this other stuff, no different than when people are, ignorant on pop culture or whatever, or if you don't know sports or if you don't know the latest line in a movie, you crack on them. Just like if you don't know that your 401k is attached to the stock market, you talking about, you just put money in there, that's all I did. That's funny to me. That's hilarious because you're a grown adult. You're a grown adult. You have you're gainfully employed with a 401k. You don't have any idea how it works. It's yours and you don't even know how it works. That's not funny. That's hilarious to me. You feel me? So when I crack these jokes, I'm not belittling you. It's just at your expense. It's at the expense of your ignorance of something that you should not be ignorant about. It's not something that's a foreign concept that you should be, learning about. It's something that you currently possess, and you're just like telling people to, take your money out of the 401k and all of that. And I'm gonna tell you this personally, I don't fuck with 401ks. You feel me? Like I you know what I mean? Like if that's what you want, that's what you want to do. Cool. I personally don't have one. I'm good. I have just several portfolios and brokerage accounts that I just invest in every month, and I'm good. So when it comes to this, all the solution has to be is that consumers get with the LLC or the entrepreneurs, the investors, get by them, learn as much as you can from them, and apply those same methods for your own life. You don't have to be entrepreneur to be a business owner. I tell my friends, my family, and my clients alike, you have to have a family LLC. You know what I'm saying? If you have a last name and you have people that have your same last name, you guys should have a legal entity that are allowing you guys to acquire assets. So that way you can, of course, avoid all of the income taxes and things like that. As far as the state taxes, you can do a bunch of creative financial things with your wealth as a family. And if you got 2 or 3 adults in that household, 2 parents, maybe an older child or something like that, you guys can actually start pulling your money together and form your own investment club and start acquiring assets as a family, and then putting all of those assets inside of a fund. And then just make sure you keep contributing to those things. And before you know it, you're sitting on 7, 8, sometimes even 9, 10 figures if you do it the correct way after a couple of generations.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question.
Hard to do.
Let me ask you a question. Shout out to Hev again, because you said that he's the one that first schooled you. So what was it to take you from working in the store to getting to the point where now you're talking about some of these advanced concepts and you're focused on generational wealth? Also, like I mentioned when we first started, you have a business where, you're the sock broker. You got the soap business, and you've written a couple books as well. What was it that made you make that full transition? Was it a book you read? Was it other mentorship?
It was okay. So we already established Hev. Shout out to him. Years passed. I moved to North Carolina. I get with my man Courtney, dope entrepreneur. He's from New York, moved to North Carolina. You know how in New York we always find each other. So we and him linking, we opened up, we started a clothing line. It was called Red Carpet Society. It was fire. You feel me? We had a bunch of dope shirts. We changed the name after some years to Avant Garde. Now, between the name change, I had got some deals with New Era fitted dealers. So during this time, sneaker, like the sneaker culture, hype beast and all this other stuff was taking the internet by storm. So you had, sneaker forums and things of that nature that I was a part of, uptowns.net, Nike Talk, shout out to them. Some of your favorite rappers came from there. Wale came from there. Currency came from there. Like a lot of them, they got their stardom by rocking with these streetwear brands and being able to be put in magazines and stuff like that. If you've noticed, like that whole era, the Wiz Khalifa's, the Mac Millers, the Asher Roth, that whole 2009 era, it was like rap and streetwear was like this. You know what I'm saying? Culturally, Crooks and Castles, 10 Deep, and all these other brands. You feel me? So during this time, New Era was popping because you needed to have a fire fitted with your outfit. Like, so I got my man Germ from Detroit, white dude, man, cool. As a matter of fact, he runs the store Revive, another streetwear store that's been rocking for the greater part of a decade, if I'm not mistaken. So shout out to them. Hopefully they still rocking. He designed New Era fitteds.
Okay.
He sent me over some designs and stuff like that. And I'm like, yo, I know I could do this. Because at this time, I was doing graphic design, on MySpace and stuff like that. When everybody was doing the page layouts and stuff like that, I was selling them myself. Like everybody was doing the copy and paste HTML. I actually did the HTML myself. I image mapped everything on there. If you wanted to go to the guest book and all of that other stuff, I linked you there. My HTML skills was on a beam. So,
you know what's amazing about that, real quick, and not to cut you off, it's just that I think about that. I remember that era, and I remember everybody trying to have a fire MySpace page, HTML code. We were actually coding, right?
We were 100% coding.
We were coding, and we don't
coding.
even realize we were coding because we were just trying to look fly, but we didn't realize.
Yeah, that was it. Like adding
actually coding,
and all of the as far as the brackets and the break brackets and. I remember like in that era of school, I passed that class like this because I did it at home for fun. And it's so funny that, if we're talking about, another 15 years, because I started doing that when I was about 14, 15. So I'm 30 now. That expertise, 15 years of, experience, who knows where I'd be at. But shout out to that experience. So through my graphic design skills, I started designing New Era fitteds. And I got deals with stores all over. Like I had a deal with Pegasus. It was a store in Harlem. I don't know if they still open. I had another deal with a guy out in Buffalo. And it's funny because his store was like a couple miles down the road from the New Era factory in Buffalo. So I was sending designs out and it's so crazy. I wish I would have knew about residual income back then because my designs are literally still being sold in New Era stores and shit like that. So I designed over 125, 130 New Era designs, and I was just, sending them out to different spots. My mom, she still got them like in her house and all of that, and a couple other dudes who knew me from back then, they still got some fitteds. But so that was that. And then that was my North Carolina. That's how, I got my entrepreneur on in North Carolina. And then we get to the precipice of what we all seen in 2014, 2015, Trayvon Martin, Mike Brown, Black Lives Matter. That turned me into, I'm not gonna say anti-white because it really wasn't that. It was just, I was just angry. I was, sucking up all of that media negativity and stuff like that. And I started to complain a lot. And my girl, she was my girlfriend at the time, my wife now. She was just like, what do you mean? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, what do you mean? Like, your life is, it's never been perfect, but all this stuff you're talking about, all these atrocities, they do happen, but let's start looking at the, full facts about what's going on. Not to say that, because I still say on record that Mike Brown was murdered. Regardless of what the, the conservatives and the pro-cop people say, I still to this day feel like Mike Brown shouldn't have been killed that day. You feel me? But going into it, I started to gravitate towards the solutions more than bitching about the problems all day online. So I started to find more outlets that were more Afrocentric, that were more Hotep, as you would, what we call it today. So it was, a bunch of YouTube channels like Sarnetta, people like Dr. Sabi, Dr. Layla Africa, Queen Afua, Tahuti Ma'at, Dr. Phil Valentine, Claude Anderson. I mean, it's a gang of black men and women who came in my life at the time where I was mad all the time about whatever was going on in the news, police killings and all of that other stuff. And they came and they started telling me, this is how you're supposed to be eating. This is how you're supposed to be living. This is how you're supposed to be speaking. This is how you get to $1 million. This is how you grow your own food. This is how you become more self-sufficient. This is how you become powerful. This is who your ancestors are. This is the stuff that these people did. Did you know that black Americans are indigenous to this land? You didn't know that. You thought it was slave ships. You feel me? Like they started teaching me all of these things. And then from there, it just reminded me all of the stuff. I was, like I said, I was more susceptible to it because of Hev. And because all of the knowledge he was giving me as a kid.
So he laid the
when
foundation.
They started telling me this stuff.
Yeah. You found new mentors, like, but Hev laid the foundation. Yeah, I got you.
Started clicking. Everything started clicking. So from there, that's where you get the birth of Black American Inca Trading Dollar Nation, where I just started focusing strictly on the solutions no more. From then on. So whatever new clip was out, whatever new murder, whatever new trauma porn that they were sending, I wasn't watching it from then on. And I started writing Black American Inc. in 2015. So it was about a year of me being angry. You feel me? About maybe 9 months of me being angry. And after that, I was looking straight for the solution. And then after that, I started implementing the solution. As far as eating right, went plant-based, lost over 100 and some pounds in
wow,
a year and some change. I started saving my money. I started doing what I was supposed to do with my cheese. Still backsliding, still, having my habits and still not really saving and investing like I was supposed to, but at least I had the notion in my mind. Getting older, getting more acclimated to the literature, getting more acclimated to the things that I was studying, started to see that fintech was one of the things that would help me get more financially disciplined, because apps like Digit automatically takes the money out of my account, saves it for me. Now all my Digit accounts are in 4 figures. I'm good now, things like that. So, fast forward to now. So from that point on, I started just implementing all of the solutions and sharing, implementing and sharing. Once I found the solution, I did it. It worked for me. Y'all, hey, this is what we can do. And all through that era, I was getting cursed out. I was getting called a coon. I was getting called an Uncle Tom because I wasn't as angry as everybody. And I wasn't sitting there blaming Whitey all day. I went through all of that. Real life friends don't rock with me no more because of that. Because I wasn't a victim. I wasn't going to be oppressed. So like real people that rock with me, smoke with me, drink with me, kicked it with me, don't talk to me anymore. I mean, I know they wish me well now because they see how successful I am. Because all of this stuff wasn't materialized as far as for me to post it on, options gains and, all this stuff. Like, it wasn't as visual back then. It was just me, I did this last week. I did this last month and it's working for me. You should try it. You feel me?
That's interesting. Which you just said a lot right there, right? First thing you said that stuck out to me, and it's crazy because that's how it seemed at the time. You was like, whatever new murder was out, right? That's the whole idea of trauma porn and the way things are given to us, because that's how it seemed around that era. It was like, what album dropped? What murder came out? Like you said, what new murder dropped? That's how it felt that way, right?
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
That's the one thing. But two, and again, this is you found new mentorship, but because of technology, you're able to get all this information to basically change your entire life, right? So you're 100% plant-based now.
Yeah, well, I still eat fish sometimes, but plant-based. Plant-based. When I say plant-based, is like the predominance of my meals are fruits, vegetables, herbs, roots, spices.
That's dope. That's dope. Yeah. That's something I'm trying to work on that part of my life now. I'm gonna get with you offline about that. But anyway,
sure.
But also what's interesting about that is you found a new mentorship, but you were willing to accept it because of somebody that laid the foundation years past.
Correct.
That's also great. But also as you learn, you shared as you learn yourself. So it's not just about getting the information and hoarding it. It's about taking this and, hey, this is what's working for me, because you can share from your personal experience.
But did you hear the response to him sharing it? Right, all the people, not all of them, but a lot of the people that he thought was, friends was clapping at him because he was sharing his successes and they was calling him coons and stuff. Like I just wrote about that. You know what I mean? Like.
Yeah. You can relate to that.
You were visionary, and then you were enacting your vision, and man, because people, they clapping at you because they're not acting on their vision. They have a vision, but they're not acting on it.
So they're really clapping at themselves.
Yeah, and that's what I started to realize. Like, I ain't gonna front, like the first few months I was internalizing that shit, man. I was like, yo, because these are people that, it's not like strangers. It's different if it was a troll or something. These are people that's telling me like, yo, you acting like a fucking coon, bro. Like it wasn't like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, dog, what you mean? And they're like, yo, son, you gonna sit there and act like none of these atrocities have anything to do with our impediment to get success and all that. I'm like, yo, bro, like, I'm not saying that that's not the case. I'm saying that this is the solution to that. And it's like, nah, bro, we need to change whites. We need to change how the dominant society and, you know, white supremacy and all this other shit. I'm just like, bro, like, I can't wait around for that.
Yeah, keep trying to do that all you want to.
Yeah,
we
like,
gotta change it. Like, keep working on that. Come on, man.
Because everybody I know that, like, because you gotta understand, like, I wasn't the first successful person on the timeline. You feel me? I do believe that as far as LLC, Twitter, and all that is concerned, I'm definitely one of the founding members of this shit. You feel me? Because I've been doing this shit since 2014, 2015. I've been around. You feel me? And I love the fact that the community has grown to where it is. I don't ever take credit for something I don't do. Everybody has been doing special shit in their own way. I just know I've been here the longest. You feel me? I've been here I've been the guy that was talking this shit against when Mike Brown's murder was still fresh.
Yeah.
When, you know, Sandra Bland and all this shit was still fresh. Nobody was talking about wealth building. Nobody was talking about, you know, making sure that you're not oppressed. You feel me? The only people that was talking about that shit was the crazy ashy hoteps. You feel me?
The crazy
ashy I wear that shit as a badge of honor. That's why I'm president of Hotep Nation. You feel
Listen,
me? So
it's also interesting because I think that in when we look back at this 20, 30, 40 years from now, Trayvon Martin's death is going to be a turning point, right? It is interesting to me because as someone who reads history,
him and Mike Brown.
Because I as someone who reads history, you see how Emmett Till's death affected so many people. When you read Malcolm, Dr. King, anybody who was active in that time, Thurgood Marshall, that one thing triggered so much that, like, you know, that
galvanized them.
Yeah, it changed history. You know, it's sad that had to happen for that, but his death, and I think that it happened again. This is like our version of that we're living.
Absolutely, it's a paradigm shift. It's one of those things in time where everybody gets a wake up call. Everybody understands that, yo, this shit is real. You feel me? And it's not to say that we're not aware of it, but when things are going relatively good for whatever the time is, you tend to put that shit to the back burner. You feel me? And that's where people get conflicted. It's like, okay, I want to raise awareness, and I also want to live my life. So people get conflicted. Do I march in the street all day to raise awareness, or do I act like it doesn't exist and life is perfect? What you do is you change your life first. You personally, yourself as an individual. Then you branch out into your household. Your wife, your husband, your children, your family members, et cetera, et cetera. And you branch that shit out into your block or your community and things like that. And you branch that even further out to other communities. And before you know it, you're going state to state with this shit because you got Twitter, you got Instagram, you got all these other places to spread that solution-based lifestyle. But it can't come from you wanting the external to change before you change internally. And that's the problem with everybody on each side, whether you want to be the professional victim or you want to tell people that they need to be, you know, buying stocks every week. You feel me? Yeah. So at the end of the day, what we need to do is make sure that we are not doing too much. Okay. Either or. So in the sense that you're forsaking common sense. You feel me? Yes, there are ways and solutions to, you know, get yourself out of poverty, out of obesity, out of, you know, generational health conditions and things of that nature through, you know, proper, you know, diets and lifestyles and things of that nature. And there are food deserts, and there are things that are, you know, structurally impeding on the average person in low income areas to want to eat fruits and vegetables because McDonald's is more accessible. Both of those things can be true, and that's the problem. It's either that you got people that are saying that it's all doom and gloom, or the world is perfect.
It's like that. It's almost like that in every conversation that you have with people. It could be It could be something as superficial as talking about, like, you know, sports. It's like either you a Michael Jordan guy, you a LeBron guy. You can't say that both of them are great, right? It's like with everything we talk about, you got to have a choice. It got to be one or the other. It can't. Life is more nuanced than that. Life is more nuanced than that.
Absolutely, Jimmy. But I will say this side, the solution side, helps this side more than excuse me, the solution side helps the problem side way more than the problem side helps the solution side. And that's where the dichotomy gets uneven. I believe that up until this point, up until the paradigm shift, the problem, the complainers, the people who felt like, all is lost, had the mic. They were the loudest people. But now you got people like everybody on the outside of Twitter. You feel me? Whether it be B or Hugo or Tara or Bees or Black Wealth Renaissance or Millionaire Mindset Pockets, like everybody that's branching out on that side of Twitter and doing their thing, like you see those people are now being, being more accepted in the fold.
And that's a good thing too, because I think that paradigm shift had to happen, because I agree with you. The solution side does more. But there was also a point in time where people who had the success kind of, I don't want to say look down on, but they didn't empathize.
They didn't share.
Well, it's not even just about sharing; it's about the empathy, right? So, so a lot of times from the work that we do in the community, you recognize just how a lot of times people don't have the information and how people are living, but there are solutions for them. But you also recognize that these people exist. I was telling someone, it was a couple weeks ago when we had an event, and I was like, yo, I was talking about something and about people with internet. And they was like, everybody has internet in 2020. I'm like, no, I've been places in Philadelphia where people are they have no internet. Like, that's a reality. But sometimes, and not now. Now I think that you have people who still have the empathy, but also have the information, which is why you see so much sharing now. And people trying to pull each other up, which is a beautiful thing, but it wasn't always that way. There was a time.
I'll even give you a little bit more historical context to that, because that's not a new phenomenon. As a matter of fact, if you compare it today to back then, we're doing much better in the terms of classism.
Okay.
Black American classism was rampant back in the day, where you had Black Americans that were more acclimated to, I would say, white society or the
bourgeoisie.
Right. So you have that bourgeois class, and instead of, because when you have this great migration of Black people coming in from the South and other places, and even one of my OGs, my sister Sonny Johnson, she actually breaks down this history really well in the interview she did with my man Hotep Jesus, and she was saying that there was some migration from North to South too, but now nobody really talks about that. But she was saying during this time where a lot of poor Southern Blacks were coming up to these places, you had a lot of these Northern Blacks who were already established, gainfully employed, things of that nature, who shunned that culture. It was a real big culture clash during that time, to where you had people who had a certain culture, you feel me, from the South, and a certain culture from the North, and it didn't mesh well. So you'll even have, and it happened in white spaces too, like you had Northern whites who would rather deal with Northern Blacks than Southern whites because of the cultural commonalities that they had. So that class of people, they get shoveled into the slums, shoveled into the projects. They're more susceptible to all of the government programs and stuff like that, as opposed to these middle class, upper class people who are gainfully employed, may even have, a pension or, assets or something like that, who in economic downturns or in a time where economic need, they wouldn't be in the worst space off. And all they would have to do, of course, was lend that olive branch out. Now, on the other end of that spectrum, you had the people coming from the South who were what they were doing. They, what I'm saying, that's how their culture was, that's how they lived. And there were certain times where they just did not want to, assimilate or acclimate themselves to that culture. So when you have this cultural divide, you have people just saying, like, forget it. Just let sleeping dogs lie. If that's how they want to live, then let them just how they is. And then, of course, you'll even have that in certain families. You'll have, like, the rich aunt or the rich uncle. You'll have, what I'm saying? You lived in the hood, and on Thanksgiving and Christmas and all of that, y'all would go to the burbs to your rich uncle and your rich aunt house. And that was some of the things. Your rich uncle and your rich aunt, they try to talk to your parents, maybe. You know what I'm saying? It was a lot of times they probably had to try to have that conversation with your parents, like, yo, you need to start saving. You need to, go back to school, or you need to, get a trade. And they was like, nah, I'm cool with what I'm doing. And then 10 years later, they moved out of the hood. They got a nicer house. They gainfully employed, and they doing what they're supposed to be doing. So what we are doing now is bridging that gap. We're bridging that gap because we're not stuck up. We're not bourgeois. We still, you know what I'm saying? I still know how to box. I still, you know what I'm saying? We not scared. You know what I'm saying? We still give it up in the same way we give it up culturally, but now we're the ones that's doing the wealth building. You feel me? Like we have surgeon salaries and all of that. Like we have, you know, real estate. We have all of this stuff, and we didn't have to forsake our culture or forsake who we are for it. That's what makes this era the best. So when
I agree.
No,
I agree with you.
Oppression and all the other stuff, I feel you. But this is no better era unless you comparing it to ancient times. You feel me? But it's no better era to be a black man or black woman.
What a time to be alive.
You know
Yeah, so, it's also like what you're saying is the reason why. And I always say this on like damn people kind of like, dude, you keep mentioning that book, but Powernomics is the book that changed my life. I never forget the first time I read Claude Anderson. Man, it's like because he was talking solutions when a lot of people weren't talking solutions, and he's been doing this forever, man. So. I
remember, listen, because Claude, he's one of my OGs. I pray I get to meet him before he passed on. You feel me? Because he changed my life. Like he was one of them like that's what I've always been privy to, and not privy to, but I've been more prone to have elders and teachers and people who knew more than me to talk to me in a no nonsense way. That's what I've always liked. You feel me? So when I have this older Southern gentleman telling me that we own less than 1% of this and that in this era, and we still don't own anything, and we need to get it together. I remember it was one of these speeches where he said, "We got until 2013, and it's over. And if we don't get it right till by 2013, we can pack it up."
I saw that speech. I think he was speaking in Baltimore. Is it a church or somebody said that?
Yeah,
I saw that.
And I seen the speech where he got teary-eyed too. You feel me? And that's like I seen. It wasn't just, pull yourself up by your bootstraps type talk. You feel me? Which is true. You got to do that. But you got to be able to give them the game. You got to give them the instruction manual. And that's what he did. If you look at that book, that's pretty much all you need. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to, throw my book under the bus, but I'm telling you, you get that book. Make sure you get that book if you haven't read that book. Powernomics is definitely...
That's my favorite book of all time because that's like...
You feel me? Like,
and I don't want to be cliche. It's like, I don't have to be cliche, but the book changed my life. It like set it on a whole different course.
Right. It's really one of those staple finance books like Rich Dad Poor Dad, but it's more specific for the black
community.
And,
absolutely.
Right. And that's the reason why, that's what inspired me to write Black American Ink, $1 Trillion Nation. You feel me? Available on Amazon. But
no doubt. And I got your book too. I got your book. But I like the title of your next book. Like just the title, like, it's fun. What made you come up? What made you just like, all right, this is the next title. This is this right to the point. And Corey's second book is called Stop Being Poor.
Yeah, so no book. I'm sorry, I'm my fault. Can we curse? I've been cursing.
Go ahead, man. This is
this our show. We do what we do.
Yeah. Go ahead.
All right, for sure. So, I had made a thread because I got on Canva and I don't know, I was probably high or something like that, and I started making like fake motivational posters, and I have a whole thread of them, and it's like one of them was like, "Yo, he don't call you back because you keep making chicken Alfredo," and it's like a cherry blossom tree on it. Like it was like another one was like, "Yo, stop lying to your followers. We can tell." Like, you know what I'm saying? And one of them was stop being poor, and I was like, "Yo, that's fire." You know what I'm saying? Like, and it just is at the point to where this was my height of finance. Got cheese because this is coming from I tell people all the time, like on podcasts, when I tell people, just about my journey, I was dead broke. Dead broke. All of that entrepreneurship, that shit was cool, but I was broke. You feel me? Like all of that new era money was gone. All of the Red Carpet Society money was gone. CDs, all of that money was gone. You feel me? And up until that point, I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing. I was barely making. I had jobs and stuff like that. I had to do what I had to do to barely maintain. But as far as like wealth building and thriving, nah, just surviving, barely. And I had Philly. Y'all live out here. Y'all see how many beer stores I got out here. It's the beer store right in front of my crib. So me and beer got closer during this time when I first moved out here and all that. So I wasn't being the best man I could be. You feel me? So I did all of those years of getting my finances, my health, and all that stuff together. So now I'm feeling like the man. You feel me? So now I feel like I got the blueprint, at least for people who was dead broke, to get to this point of financial security. You know what I'm saying? To go from being able to pay your bills on time or ahead of time to go from, paying for shit with credit cards and debt and all that stuff to being debt free and all of that. I got debt free 2016, completely consumer debt free 2016, and I haven't looked back since. You know what I mean? And it's funny because Credit Karma literally just gave me a notification just now. That's funny. But from then, I just like, yo, let me just document what I did. You feel me? And turn it into something that can help other people. Because up until that point, I was just giving out free game. Like, yo, make sure you cut back on this. Make sure you cut back on this. And then there was another side of Twitter too that was like, you know, a bunch of like self-development trainers and, you know, that like the Ajax and Ed Latimores and, you know, Hotep Jesus, all of these guys who have been on the scene teaching people. That's why they all have like, you know, 6-figure followings, is because they've been tremendous in that space. Yeah. So I started learning from them as far as info products and being able to market your knowledge and sell your information. And, you know, one of the major things is that you couldn't be a phony, because it was too many phonies out there. You just go to Google, start copying and pasting some shit, put it in a PDF and sell it. And that's why I didn't want to do that. So what I did was I documented my lifestyle. Like, I told people what I did. I just didn't put a whole bunch of, you know, random Google searches in a PDF form. Mm-hmm. I actually gave them me. And people read it and was like, yo, like, thank you. I changed my, you know, I saved $10,000, or, you know, I'm no longer behind on my bills. Somebody just emailed me yesterday, telling me they're about to pay for school out of pocket because of my emails and my book.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that post, yeah.
I was on live like a couple months ago, and somebody told me that they saved $10,000 because of my tweets and my book. So it's like, because of that, I was like, I felt more confident in being able to charge people for this. And what I also learned from that side of Twitter is that you're only going to put action behind something if you do invest in it. Because the free game, we give it for free because we understand that in totality, most people are not going to take action on it.
Yeah.
But you put a dollar sign behind it. They don't have to be $300, you know, $25, $29, $40. You put $40 behind it, it at least incentivizes you to put it to action, as opposed to me just emailing you a link to a website or an article or a PDF, and you'll get to it, or you'll copy it to your iBooks app, and you'll never get to it. But you pulled your credit card out, you pulled your debit card out, you bought something, and they got an email to you directly.
That's a conversation. That's a conversation we have all the time. That balance between free versus charging, and making sure you're not charging too much, because you want to give people the information, but also we understand the psychology of how people put a value to things based upon, you know, pay. So that's like a constant conversation we have.
That's where
try to figure that out.
That's where content comes in. You know, I've seen a bunch of your free content. I've seen your watermark on thousands of videos. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy. Yeah. Like, I'm still, nobody's telling me. I've been trying to do that whole thing with the videos with the words up top and the bottom. Nobody's telling me how it's like a trade secret. Nobody will ever tell me how to.
And I do all that right from the phone. I ain't even no fancy software. It's like right on the cell phone.
But anyway,
I can make an info product on that. How about that? Anyway,
I got you. But yeah, so that's where the free game comes from. That's where you get the tweets, the threads, the blogs, the email. That's for free. So when it comes down to this $75 course or this $100 this, and I don't feel bad, because you have enough free information from me, not just the internet, from me personally, that you can apply and you can make bread. There's a bunch of people
that's kind of like
tell me, yo, I don't even need to buy your shit. I can, you know, just use your free information. And
that's like the Gary V joint. What's it? Jab, right hook. I think it's what he calls it in his book. He talks about the jabs is the free information, and then you hit him with the right hook, which is like, yo, now I got to charge you for this.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So and the reason why I go so hard about this particular part of this topic is because there's so many bums sitting on the sidelines that try to ridicule what we do, that try to belittle what we do, as opposed to, like we're wrong for charging for the information. You can pay $30,000 to learn about African American gender studies, and it's not a problem. That's totally okay. That's a good, you know, that's a good spend of your time and your money. But I charge you $29 for a guide that would absolutely put you in a place of financial security for the rest of your goddamn life. And I'm tripping for doing that. And this is the problem. Like, that's the reason why I don't take any of those criticisms serious. Now, if there are people out there who are selling shitty info products, absolutely don't shop with them. You feel me? Do not shop with them. They need to up their content. They need to up what they're doing, up the quality of what they're doing. But as far as trying to disparage people just doing that period, nah. I encourage everybody to have an ebook.
Listen, man,
I encourage everybody to have a course.
You have to invest in
some
yourself.
Information. Why not?
And the thing is, people are so brainwashed, right? I just had this conversation. I was telling someone that I paid $1,000 like for a course to learn options, right? Mm-hmm. So, and the thing about paying for that course is I made my money back the very next week because of the information that I learned in the course. I'm already profitable, even though it cost me $1,000 to learn information. And they were like, you can go online. I said, listen, it's the difference between going to YouTube to get the free stuff and sitting in an online boot camp. It cost me $1,000. I said, but here's the thing. I told this, you have no problem with going to a college paying $100,000 and you ain't made one penny off that.
You don't know, and you don't know if you ever will. I paid $100,000 for information that I never used. Never, never ever.
Listen, man.
When I got my degree, it cost me 100 racks. Listen, it cost me 100.
Me too, dog. I had $100,000 student. I have a master's degree in real estate. Like people say, what the hell are you gonna do with a master? All that allows me to do is, if I wanted to, is to teach a collegiate course, right? That's all it allows me to do. Other than that, most of the stuff I've learned in real estate is through trial and error. But I have six figures that I'm be getting rid of soon. But I also have a master's degree. So now I have a master's degree in real estate. What does that actually even mean? In retrospect, it really means nothing, right? You know what I mean? It really means nothing, right? But at the end of the day, though,
like, yo, son, there's a literal there's a pre and post-apocalyptic Walking Dead themed course that you can take, and you could be certified in zombie post and pre-apocalyptic scenario. Ask me how much the course is.
How much does that cost?
$6,000, my nigga.
Come on, cuz. If someone is getting it too.
Yeah, so this is what I'm saying. So, do I feel bad? First of all, you're talking to a nigga that's so crack. So you're not gonna make me feel bad. You feel me? You're not gonna make me feel bad about shit I said, son. It's not. I sold worse. I've sold worse than a PDF document, dog. So you're not gonna make me feel bad about any of this shit. And the results of it, my following speaks for itself. The following engagement, as far as people talking to me about my content, it works. G, like people tell me this stuff, and it's time now. People in our side to start flexing that because it only makes it more attractive. This is the reason. You know why I started selling drugs, my nigga? I'll tell you. I rapped about it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I rapped too. And so it was one day I was coming from school. And I bumped into my homie Eric. My man Eric, he had a duffel bag on him, right? I was like maybe 12, 12, going on 13, right before I actually got the job with him. And I bumped into him, and he had his duffel bag. He dropped the duffel bag. He's like, yo, watch what you doing. I'm like, my fault, bro, whatever. He opened up the bag, bro. And as a 12-year-old, you know what I'm saying? You've never seen this much money before ever in your life. So I'm thinking it's like $1 million in. So I'm like, yo, dog. How much, where did you get this money from? This nigga told me he hustled. I'm like, oh, word? Show me the way. Like, how did you get to this shit? You feel me? Like, how did you get to this shit? Man, he set me up with a starter pack, and I was on ever since then. And I was with the bud. And then my homeboy, Costa, rest in peace, his girl, Gabby, she knew this Colombian kid, and he had Ready Rock just in the crib. You feel me? So she would flirt with this nigga. We would get free crack, my nigga. Free crack. And sold it all day long, money. And so this is the back, you know what I'm saying? So when you're telling me about an info product, you feel me? What is it? They call it LLC Twitter, $1,200 business Twitter.
Oh, no, the new one is Rock Nation Brunch. Rock Nation Brunch Twitter, man.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that is Rock Nation Brunch Twitter. I come up rough, boy. Like, I don't care. Like, all of those names, they don't bother me. Like, that's one of the main reasons why we took Hotep for what it was. That's what Hotep was, a pejorative at one point.
Yeah.
You feel me?
It was like a negative. Now, he's a Hotep. Yeah.
Yeah, now we at Hotep Con, May 1st. Hotep Con. That's what we had now. We took Hotep from a pejorative to now a convention that we do at least once a year. You feel me? So this is where we at now.
So is that a virtual thing you want to have, or you got to have an action in person?
No, it's going to be in Washington, D.C.
Washington, D.C.? Okay.
May 1st, Hotep Con. I'm going to give everybody more details. I'm going to start dropping the flyers soon. Yeah, Hotep Khan, yo, for real. We gonna turn up.
You might want to push that. You might want to push that a little farther into the summer.
Well, yeah,
everything going on now
with the corona going down. You might want.
That Rona, man.
You might want to push that a couple months. Push that back a couple months. Give everybody lungs. Give everybody lungs some time to breathe, man. Some time to flow.
Whole world is changing, man. Whole world is changing, man. But yeah, man, listen. So, man, you're giving us a lot of information, man. So, but before
I know you. So, we're not gonna talk for.
I know, but I know how it's free flow.
No, listen, man. You got a lot of information, man.
Yeah, man. I love it.
You dropping bombs on the folks.
I love our conversation. But let me ask you a question, though.
Anybody like, we're gonna do 45 minutes. Never works.
Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question, though. Right. So, going through this process, right? So, you talked about your journey. I mean, you know, from a youngin' to selling crack, to having an awakening, to having mentorship. What has been like what was the biggest struggle or the biggest hurdle that you had to get over between then to bring you to where you are now? Like, what is something that's like you would probably consider your biggest hurdle?
Honestly, myself, my procrastination, my laziness, my complacency, my addiction, my everything that literally made me unsuccessful was me. I mean, because my background, like I started smoking weed when I was like 11. And like, you know how people say they started smoking weed at 11, stopped and started again at like 16. I'd never stopped smoking since I was 11, like religiously. You know what I'm saying? So that impeded on my mental development to the point to where, like, as a kid, complex math done, long reading not happening. So it's like, that's really what my problem was. Like, all of that cool, it was cool. I had all that life experience, but scholastically, like, I could read and write. That's cool because that's something. But like scholastically, like certain math, like after like pre-algebra, I checked out. You feel me? So those things hurt me because when you're doing personal finance and you're doing basic finance, those you got to be able to get those concepts mathematically in your mind, percentages, ratios, and things like that. You have to make sure that you can, you know, account for that, especially in options trading. You got to know your premiums versus your break-even price. That you got to understand that stuff. And that, I ain't gonna lie, even to this day, I still have, you know, certain things that I work in. I have to work past and stuff like that because of developmental issues. You know, not slow or nothing like that, but definitely not as fast as I should have been. As smart as I am right now, I definitely could have been smarter. But so yeah, all of that, man, it was really myself. Like, you know, eating too much, smoking too much, drinking too much, wasting time, procrastinating, not, you know, taking, you know, starting and stopping was the biggest thing. Starting and stopping throughout just that, my entire growth phase was my biggest impediment. I had a podcast, fire. I mean, literal blue check people retweeting my podcast just stopped out of nowhere. Why? You know what I mean? New Era could have gotten better. You know, nobody stopped buying New Era fitted. Stop that. Why? Like, so that was my biggest thing. If I had to say, my biggest obstacle was myself and starting to stop it, not continuing. You feel me? And it's not like I'm stopping because it was low or it was boring or it wasn't. Nah, like niggas is waiting for the podcast, and I'm just like, you know what I mean? Like, so that was my thing, and I'm glad, you know, implementing the whiteboard that I have, implementing, you know, those apps like Slack and Asana keeps me productive. It keeps me, you know, on what I'm supposed to be on. And of course, the social circle that I have, a bunch of go-getters, a bunch of high achievers, a bunch of high net worth people, a bunch of, you know, high work ethic people that keeps me on my toes. Like, you can't, when it's time to check in with your homies and they like, yeah, I just closed this deal, or I just opened up this and I just did this, and here you come with like, yeah, I had a nice sandwich. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have nothing to contribute to the conversation.
You know, that's interesting you say that, because that's like throughout this entire conversation, one of the things that I'm picking up on is how the people you surround yourself with, right? And a lot of times we think about that in the physical, but even in the virtual world, when we talk about being on Twitter or being on IG or Facebook, whatever your platform of choice is, the people you surround yourself with there also like can add energy or take away energy from what you're doing in real life. So,
yo, that's a fact. Like, I try to tell people this. First of all, Twitter is the number one app in my life, and I'll tell you why. First of all, I met my wife on Twitter. You know what I'm saying?
Damn, I didn't know that story.
Yep, yeah. I met her on Twitter. My DM game is sufficient, as you can see. You feel me? And we here, you know what I'm saying? Like, literally started from a DM, and we got all married, you know, really married. You feel me? And my timeline is a literal never-ending well of opportunity. I can just randomly scroll my timeline right now, and I can find a real estate deal. I can randomly scroll my timeline right now and find a startup deal. I can randomly scroll my timeline and find another income stream like that. Somebody just made some money on my timeline. I can guarantee it. I can affiliate somebody's ebook on my timeline. I can buy into a real estate deal that somebody has currently. I can go halvesies on a business with somebody. Like, I just literally, like, it's ridiculous how profitable my timeline is. It's nuts. It's literally nuts. Like, I made $1,100 off of B's tweet last week. $1,100 in a week off of a tweet. He didn't talk to me. He didn't even tweet me. He was like, yo, our goal, which is Royal Gold, it's a stock out in is it Canada? I'm not sure. Did some minor due diligence on it, bought a couple contracts. Gold went up because, you know, the economy is like crazy right now. So we've been trading options. Like, the volatility has been amazing for us. So based upon that, like, I made $1,100 off of a tweet. Now you compare that to somebody else's timeline where you got nothing but them stupid ass challenges. You got naked hoes. You got a bunch of beef, like, you know what I'm saying, and shit like that, like, going on the timeline. What are you doing? Like, what is your timeline? This is the same thing when people complain about their timeline. I never complain about my timeline. I only rant about niggas who have retweeted onto my timeline of the foolishness. You feel me? Because my timeline, nobody's a bum, nobody's a victim, nobody believes that they're defeated in any way. I can go. My timeline is perfect. And
I got a couple questions about that, because that means that you curated your timeline for a specific way, right?
100%.
So it took you a while to curate that.
Oh yeah.
But
I had different tastes throughout the years.
And that's what I was going to say. Like, you know, because I ain't going to front like I haven't been, you know, guilty of, you know, double tapping certain things, but you got to clean that out sometimes. Sometimes you got to recognize what's what, right? For the first question is this: why is Twitter your platform of choice? Like, what is it about Twitter that speaks to you more so than all the other platforms out there?
But I honestly, I really think it's because Twitter, it's really sans superficiality, but it's not as raw and just wordy as like a Reddit or a 4chan. You feel me? So it's like the in-between. It's like a perfect microblog to where you can post pictures and videos, but we're really there for your insight. We're really there for what you have to say. Not so much. Now, of course, the visual aspect is always great. That's why Instagram is great for what they do. But I see people like pages like Artemis Gordon. He'll have, you know, pictures and stuff like that and have this long ass post. And back in the day when I was on Instagram, I wasn't really on it like that. But when I was going, I actually read his posts. But I would much rather have that. I'd rather read that on the blog or Twitter. You feel me? So my thing is, it's much smarter than all the other apps.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? As far as, like, of course, you know, not counting like the Reddits and stuff like that. But Twitter is smart, it's entertaining, and it's profitable, as opposed to an Instagram where it's really maybe just entertaining or maybe just, you know, appealing to you. I know even like wealth building Twitter, they like wealth building Instagram because the visuals of the real estate, the visuals of the money, the visuals of, you know, that's all cool. But I'm really here for the information, not for the pictures. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the reason why I don't, like, I'll show my gains, but you'll never see me with like stacks of cash on the timeline. Like, shout out to Stack Season. Like, I fuck with Hugo and all of them. They killing it. You feel me? Like, being all of them putting cash on the Abbeys and all that, I rock with that. But it's just like, personally, I would never.
It's about your
personality.
personality.
I screenshot some games though. You feel me? Like, I show you this real out here. It's not,
Screenshot, especially when you know trading options. That always works in terms of screenshots. But I get your point with that. I understand that. And to be honest with you, you're one of the first people who on the timeline where I kind of like saw the power of Twitter when they first, because I've been on Twitter since like 08, 07, somewhere around there.
Yeah, me too. That's what I'm saying. I've been on. Yeah,
when they first added the ability to, like, you know, put those multiple
threads.
The threads out, because you like turned it into a blog almost. And I was like,
that's
okay,
what Twitter is. People don't understand that.
It's a microblog. I get that, but being able to have more than 140 characters, where you have that thread now and you're telling a whole story. Like, you posted one the other day. And it's funny. So Corey and I, about a couple, at this point, it's damn near a month ago, we went to an early screening of The Banker, and shout out to
Joseph Morris.
So shout out to Apple for hooking us up with that. But we went to early screening of that, and I was blown away. And then, like, you know, a couple days later, whatever it was, I saw you had posted on the timeline, like, you wrote the whole story out about them and put it in a thread. And I'm like, damn, this is dope. So now I'm reading through it, and you attach the articles from the magazine or whatever. And I'm like, all right. So I realized, like, okay, Twitter can be an Instagram. Twitter can be a blogger. Twitter can be a Facebook. Twitter has the ability to be all those things.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I people like yourself who actually learn to use that the right way.
And that was the that's actually one of my like finer themes on Twitter. I love that. You know what I'm saying? Like it's one of those things where it just flies in the face of the bullshit, man. It flies into the face of what was civil rights. Like, bro, like to understand that there was OGs back in those times that was not protesting, but wasn't jacking the civil rights movement, and then you get the cultural context of what was happening during that time and all of this shit. Like, it was like, wow, I'm not crazy. Like, man, like all of these stories that I tell them all the time because they really stick out. Like Samuel B. Fuller, I tell this story where Samuel B. Fuller, a Republican black man, millionaire, of course, 50s, 60s, he tells Martin Luther King, we bankrupted the bus, we boycotted them, you know what I'm saying, and we can buy the bus. Martin Luther King says no. So when we have these types of nuanced type stories, that's the best type of history. Like, I don't like blanket history. I don't like it. I don't like I don't subscribe to the fact that every white liberal is, our savior and all this other shit, but I don't think that it was all just one blanket thing, that all white people was racist at this time, all black people were inferior at this time, all this, like, it wasn't
because
like
life is nuanced. And the funny thing is, I don't understand how people don't get that, because if you live in a world, you have to understand how nuanced things are. Things aren't this way or that way. Because one of the more interesting things I find, like in reading history, because they always talk about the civil rights. They give us the people you mentioned earlier, the Martins, the Malcolms, the Rosa. That's if they even give you Malcolm. A lot of times they want to give you Malcolm. But with all that being said, when you look at
give you a picture of them.
Yeah, when you look at a lot of these movements, who the hell you think was funding them? We had the black business class was funding a lot of these movements.
Talk to them, son.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like they don't ever tell those stories. Those are the stories we need to start to get, is the people that actually funded these
athletes in the business class was funding these things.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't really understand that or get that, because now, you know what I mean, if they were to do that now, it would get out. It would get out almost instantaneously. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So we live in a different kind of society where that would get out instantly. Like, if LeBron James was to fund something like a Black Lives Matter movement, he would get excoriated and almost lose everything.
I would say this. I'll respond to that and say maybe a different organization, because Black Lives Matter was. I would just
bring it up.
A real Black liberation movement, like he would be able to. You're right. And that's disheartening, you know what I'm saying? And
he would get crushed. You know what I mean?
But let me ask you a question though. Just having this conversation, you don't think that he's above? How can you actually crush LeBron at this point? Do you think that you can get to the point
he's not above it because he still makes his money?
True.
He's still beholden to people to make his money.
No, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
He has enough money where he will never be poor.
But that's true. But his skill set and what he could do, they're still making money with him. So I don't know. To me, I always think about this, right? When you get to that level of where you, LeBron, you're at the top of the food chain in what you do, and you have an entire economy. Like, LeBron is an economy. I remember reading articles and the data about him going to Cleveland and what it did for business downtown.
Yeah, it was like $3 billion. He made $3 billion
just by him showing up.
So
my thing is, they might tolerate it, because think about it. They tolerate a lot of what he does now. I think that he might be able to, like, if he really wanted to.
You talking about?
I think that. So what it is, there's two things. There's two ways to approach it. So one way, of course, is the safe way, which is what I always encourage, like, that class of people to do, because nobody wants to get their contracts ended and stuff like that because they got a little bit too political, especially when the end goal is that you just want a bunch of Black children and families to live better, to where you don't have to rail against the entire machine just to make sure people live better. So that's where building a school, investing in local real estate, making sure that you can become the landlord, simple stuff like that you can do. You don't have to be super philanthropic with it. You just ownership. That's what you're a multi-millionaire. Own some shit. So that way, when anything goes down, you can hire people in the community. Like, so that's what I would say. The safe way is to build infrastructure. Now, if you want to be one of those people, like your Muhammad Ali's, where he's like, yo, I'm not fighting no Viet Congs. And if you want to take that route, then you gotta be able to deal with what comes with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I advise all of the when people like, oh, why don't Hove and Beyonce and all the other people do more? That's honestly what I would advise, yo. Buy some property. You know what I'm saying? Become a landlord for a black community. Build infrastructure in a place where you can start
hire somebody.
hire people.
It's
That's
nothing. Listen,
I'm
man.
not,
To me,
I'm
the
not saying
most revolutionary thing you could do is help someone feed their family. To me,
Yeah.
and that's
to
it.
me, that's the
So
most
what I'm saying.
revolutionary
Help
thing.
somebody feed their family.
What's more
I don't think
revolutionary
you
than
need
that?
to kneel. I don't think you need to do anything crazy in the news. You don't have to ever publicize the fact that you own 2 miles of Baltimore city blocks, and you know what I mean, and you just make sure that they nice, affordable, and because T.I. did that. T.I. Doesn't raise his rent in some of his affordable housing. He keeps it all at $400 a month, even though it's renovated, even though the property values is going up. He keeps it at that level, but people in that neighborhood who live in that neighborhood for the longest can still afford to live there. As a billionaire or as a multimillionaire, you're able to do that. It's not like you're hemorrhaging money. It's just that you're not making the maximum potential cash flow that you could be making for the greater good of your community.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
You're not losing no money, but you're not building your wealth off the back of your own people.
Right. You know what I'm saying? And it's like no press conference, no march in the street. Just buy the properties, renovate them, and put them up for rent. That's it.
Yeah. And
so that's what when you compare, why don't Hope said that on the Jail Electronic album, like y'all try to, I'm guilt free, y'all didn't ask this of this person in the Carnegies and all of that, and it's like, I get it, bro. I'm not about to sit here and tell billionaires or rich people.
Oh, absolutely not. You can't tell nobody. I don't pocket watch. I was just having that conversation because I was thinking about like whether LeBron was beyond that or not. But I don't like to spend people's money.
That's what I'm saying. As far as beyond that, that's the thing. Like, you don't necessarily have to be beyond. You don't necessarily.
No, I just wonder what the pushback would be if he tried to donate to one of those Black liberation things. Because I'm just thinking about from an economic standpoint. Like, is squashing LeBron worth it at this point when you're still making billions off of him? That's the conversation I was talking about. I don't necessarily think that he should do one. He has to do whatever makes him happy.
Let me ask you this. Long term, he creates a league that competes with the NBA, because we Black and we got the talent and we got all of this. We actually, and of course this is hypothetical, we actually start taking a lot of that NBA market share. And it's because we didn't crush him years ago when he was donating to this Black liberation movement. So that's, you know what I'm saying? That
it's the bigger goal. You're absolutely right. I mean? Absolutely right.
So that's what it is. And I bring that up, like, Black American Inc. is pretty much this conversation. Like,
it's about building. It's about building.
We owned every industry that we either dominate as far as being the consumers or dominate as far as being the revenue, up for that industry. Sports, HBA. Black women literally keep HBA alive. Annie Turbno, she created the first cosmetology college in America, period.
Yeah,
meaning that there wasn't even a vocation for beauty until a Black American woman created it.
Yeah,
and she had an 500-seat auditorium, and she had a whole big college. She's actually Madam C.J. Walker's OG.
She's a mentor, and they just did her dirty on that Netflix, John. They did her filthy.
So this is what happens. You got your enemies telling your story. That's why I tell my youngins and I tell everybody, man, you need to document your life. Because I'm telling you, you're going to be fucked up. It's 50 years from now. Your op is telling your story to your kids, to your grandkids.
Yeah, that's nuts, man. They did her dirty because and that was another great book, by the way, Black Fortunes by Shamari Wills. Breaks that down. You know what I mean?
Black Fortunes is a great book.
A couple questions, like a couple more questions. Let's talk about some books, though. I see you got that Reefer Madness jump behind you, and that was an excellent book that I read a long time ago. Just what are some books that you would recommend for someone who's like, because you said yourself that your biggest hurdle was getting over yourself. So I'm pretty sure that reading helped you along the way. You talked about mentorship. What are some of your favorite books that have helped you along the way?
Powernomics, of course.
Yeah.
Recently, I like this book, Laws of Wealth by Dr. Daniel Crosby.
You said Laws of Wealth?
The Laws of Wealth.
I gotta look that up. Okay, I haven't read that.
Dr. Daniel Crosby is a great book. Cliche, but Rich Dad Poor Dad. These are all the books that I personally read. Like, I'm only going off because a lot of my education came from experience. Like, I'm a real head first type of guy. Gotcha. So a lot of it, the type of information I like to ingest are like tutorials. like back when I was doing that, for an example, just not to go off topic, when I was doing graphic design, I would just look up tutorials and be able to, follow the tutorial and then be able to tweak it and customize it myself once I learned how to get the skill. So a lot of my reading is really just to get certain information. Like, okay, I got an options trading strategy book. And I go there strictly for the strategies and understand certain concepts. So yeah, so Rich Dad Poor Dad, Laws of Wealth, Powernomics, 7 a.m. is a DVD, but I think it's also
I'm familiar with that.
Yeah,
but that's a good though. That's a good. I only wanted a couple because the Laws of Wealth is a good one. I always like to ask people that question because you'll always get something that no one ever says. So everybody comes here and talks about Rich Dad Poor Dad, but no one's ever mentioned Laws of Wealth. So I'm glad you brought that up because I'll add that to our list. We have like a recommended books list that we keep a tally of the books that a lot of people come on the podcast talk about. Just to share different types of books. We like to share information. So we like to share books that people have talked about as well. So I'm going to add Laws of Wealth to that too as well. Man,
we really be getting busy, man. Like, and I like you because you really out here putting in the work. I wanted to ask you one question. In the communities that you live in and that that you're in, what kind of educational stuff do you do with your folks?
All right, so I went straight to the hustlers. I'll be totally honest. I still solicit. You feel me? I still go buy bud. So that's who I went to first because they was more apt to listen to me. When I had my podcast, I interviewed them. You feel me? And it was one of the more special interviews because these is young.
And what was the name of your podcast? Is it still out there? Like right now, people can look at the old episodes.
No, actually, because matter of fact, shout out to my man Chris, Coach Chris. I don't know if y'all got into him. He actually was like he's my, how like Combat Jack and all of them had loudspeakers. He was my loudspeakers. You feel me? Like under his network. And me and him was working together great. And again, like I said, on me, just stopped recording one day. You know what I'm saying? So when he realized that, he just took it down. I can still listen to it because it's from my thing. But yeah, but I will upload the old episodes just because it was great. Like it was it was a few like a couple dozen episodes. You feel me? I had a little run about a year. I interviewed them I went outside, had my iPhone, I had the voice memo, we were just talking. And I asked him, like, how'd you even get into this lifestyle? He was like, my uncle, he was, he had the weed, when I was younger, and, he put me on. And then after that, I took it to the next level with this and that and the third, you know what I mean? And then we were just chopping it up. And then after I finished recording, I uploaded it, sent it to them, and they were able to listen to it. And, of course, I got the music in between. And so it's a production. They feel, they feel not famous, but they feel like, I'm actually being, like, if nothing else, Doe put us on, and my life has been documented in some way on this platform. So they appreciated that. So from there, I was like, yo, bro, like, download Robinhood, bro. Get into this, doing that. And then I had a contract with a door-to-door company run by a young guy. And his reps, they were making 4 figures a week. And they're like 18, 19, 20 years old. They don't know what to do. They're making $1,100, $1,500 a week. They don't, they don't got no responsibilities like that. So I started doing Stop Being Poor classes with them. And then I had them open brokerage accounts and things of that nature. What else? I have an email list that's separate from my other email list with just all the readers from Stop Being Poor, getting updates from them, being able to, keep in tune with them. But as far as community physically, that's what I've been doing. I went to the
that's
love, man.
That is love. That is love. Because like you actually did them a service, like teach them a whole.
I told them
way.
too. I told them to pay their taxes too. They ain't believe me. I'm like, yo, son, you gotta pay taxes on them drugs, man. You don't. That's one of the things that people.
That's the thing that'll get you knocked off.
You get booked, son.
Yeah, that'll get you knocked off. That's the thing that'll get you knocked off.
Taxes, yo.
It's crazy.
For your taxes.
I was listening to a podcast. It was a chick who was a escort, and she was talking about how she pays her taxes, and she actually got a gain from one of her clients. Set up an LLC. Now this chick got rental property. She set up like a self-directed 401k. Yo, they said the chick worth like $700,000, but she started as an escort, and one of her clients gave her the game. And now she paying taxes.
Yo, so people understand that's how a lot of these other criminal factions got legit. You feel me? Like you can't just buy the front, bro. You can't just buy the front. You can't buy the mechanic shop and then run the drugs out of it. Like, you got to register the LLC. You got to have the actual legal person to run in there so you can have a manager. You got to have a real staff. You got to have a real business. And then you funnel all of that money that you was getting from the drugs into these clean businesses. So when it's time to, show what you actually made, it's all clean money. And then you can transition out of the black market.
Yeah.
That's how that's what Superfly did. That's what you're supposed to do as far as drug dealing. I know it sounds crazy because it's not what I want anybody to do.
No, exactly. We ain't listen, by the way, we're not telling anybody to do anything wrong. But at the end of the day, if you study the history of this country, and look how many people have made that transition. Like, a lot of times they don't allow us to make the transition.
Right. So this
sometimes you got to be smart about it.
This is just a conceptual conversation is what I'm saying, as far as, like, it doesn't even have to be drugs. If you're doing something on the black market, get legal. That's the whole point. That's the basic. Yeah. Get legal. Get you a corporate entity, a legal entity that's registered, has an EIN and all that other stuff, and that way you can navigate all of that dirty money and put it into a place that's actually going to clean it up. You feel me? Okay. And you'll no longer have to do all of that black market shit. That's all I'm saying is, stop committing crime. Is the message. It's not to continue to do crime and then funnel it. It's to go legit, because committing crime is I'm not going to say wrong, but it's frowned upon.
It'll take you to a place where you'll lose years off your life, basically.
Right.
Absolutely.
All right, right or wrong is too subjective for me. Like, selling weed, I don't think is wrong. You feel me? You know what I mean?
Again, we talk about that. Things are nuanced, right?
Yeah.
But again, though, listen, man, this has been an amazing conversation. I know this is gonna happen once we get you on here, because your energy and the things you talk about, they resonate with.
No, I'm just a blabbermouth, bro. That's
no. Listen, but you dropping jewels.
You talk about a lot of the same things that we do.
Yeah. So like, that's why. Listen, but here's the question I got for you, right? So it's about, like, what do you see yourself going in the future with your movement? And, like, you talked about having an actual conference. What are some of the other things you're working on for the future?
All right, so I tier these the future things. So we have short term, midterm, and long term. So we'll just go through them. Short term, HotepCon, of course, being able to push Hotep Nation to a nationwide and then global forefront. And the reason why I say global in the short term is because we're on the internet age, and we already are popping in other countries already. So we want to just make sure that we branch out nationwide, making sure that we are instituting all of the things that we've been talking about as far as health building, not just wealth building, self-sufficiency. We like to call it self-supremacy. Everybody talks about white supremacy. You have even certain people say black supremacy. We say self-supremacy. So if you just look at your life, right? If you look at the way your life is, in order for you to master your life, you pretty much have to be a master in a lot of things, right? In order for you to understand your body, not the bodies of anybody else, but your body, your own biology, you would have to understand biology as a whole. So you'll understand how your organs and how your internal workings work, associating with whatever foods, drinks, and lifestyle choices that you make. So even if you can't help anybody else with their internal organs, you can at least understand yours. So you got to understand biology. As far as your own personal finances, right? You need to be able to, if you can't manage anybody else's portfolio or, give any financial advice to somebody else, you need to be able to be a financial expert for your own finances. And then as far as actually growing food or being able to feed yourself, you may not be able to feed an entire community, but you should be able to have a garden in your backyard, maybe a little livestock if you eat meat, to raise your own food. That's very, very important. It's actually, I tell people all the time, raising or growing your own food is the most revolutionary thing that you can do. You understand? Because you'll have certain things like the war on poverty, to where people are literally leveraging their livelihoods and the way that they live on a moral value level for a plate of food stamps, for a place to stay, Section 8. Like, they're totally forsaking how they would ever raise themselves and raise their children because of certain things, not certain things, because of the essential things that you need to live. So if somebody has control over your food or the way you eat or how you eat or when you eat or what you eat, you are always going to be out there winning. But every year I grow my own fruits and vegetables to make sure that if shit hits me, I can still feed myself and my family. It's the same thing with my finances. It's the same thing with my body. It's the same thing with me understanding the law when I'm going out here, or carrying a gun or driving or anything like that. I need to understand the law, and I also need to know combat. I need to know how to defend myself. I need to know how to use a firearm. So you have to be an expert, and all these things may not be for the general public.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? But you need to have all of this stuff for your own safety and your own development as a person. So once you compound all of that studying for yourself, you begin to start sharing it. It's just what it is. Like, I learned all of this stuff for the betterment of myself, but why sit on it? So that's where you get kind of thrusted into the whole teacher bag. Like, tell me. I mean, I'm pretty sure you guys get DMs every day. As soon as you type something interesting, people gonna DM you, yo, I just seen,
yeah, that's true. Every day.
what you
You're right.
said on the thread, like, what you mean by
Yeah.
options? Or, you know what I'm saying? I'm pretty sure I'm going to get DMs like, yo, I heard you on the Body Block podcast.
Yeah.
What did you mean by XYZ? It's going to be the same thing. You get thrusted into becoming a teacher. And I accept. It's it's great. I'm paying it forward because that's the same thing Hev did to me. Imagine if Hev sat on that information. Where would I be today?
That's
you know
a
what
great
I'm saying?
point. That's a great point. So
it's like,
that's the goals. That's the goal. Short term, you talk about.
So midterm, so that you get HOTEP, national, and worldwide. Mid-tier, we're going to be, as far as individually, as far as my family and stuff like that, we're going to be, growing our family, and buying more land and buying more real estate. And focusing, more and more on building our real estate portfolio. Like, I want to have miles of real estate. You feel me? Like, miles and miles and miles of shit. So definitely having a lot of startups under in our portfolio. I want to invest in, small businesses and things of that nature. More alternative investments, wine, artwork, collectibles, crypto, things like that. So having all of that built up in 6-7 figure accounts. You feel me? And in the long term, billionaire status, doing everything that I want Hov to do. You know what I mean? Being like, you know what I mean?
I like that.
Landlord to thousands of people.
Do it my damn self.
No, yeah, exactly. I like that approach though. Look, I'm not gonna tell you what he should do. I'm gonna do everything I think he should do. I like that.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So of course, like, be a super duper dope landlord. Have wealth building academies across the country and the world that teaches all of this stuff. Like, it started from a PDF document to actual academies where you get certificates and actual diplomas from A.R. Morton's wealth building academy, and we're going to just keep this going. So we'll have real live university level wealth building academies that children from K through 12 ought to be able to go to. It's not going to be no funny shit. I'm not going to, sitting there be GoFunding me. No shots to nobody. But I'm not going to need to GoFund me to get this building. I'm going to be able to do this shit myself and to come out of pocket for it. Because I have such a strong network of, by this time, we talking about long term. So by this time, we'll all be at least
absolutely
9 figures, around at least 7 to 9 figures. Everybody should be at least that.
And we build together. It's about community.
Yes, and so that'll be it. I want to go down as one of the purveyors and one of the pioneers as far as this era of group economics in the Black American community.
Man, that's fire.
I want to be in the rafters with Claude Anderson. You feel me? Like, I want, like, A.R. Morton is responsible for XYZ million Black Americans. You know what I'm saying?
It's funny you say that, man. And shout out
because,
to
like, off rip, not that what I'm saying, cut you off, but like the Robinhood referrals. I'm maxed out of that. I'm maxed out of my stash referrals. I'm maxed out. So we talking about 500 people just off of Robinhood alone have open Robinhood accounts based upon my tweets and things of that nature.
That's fire. That's fire.
You feel me? And that's not because you don't get paid for it no more. I think I can get paid for it now because it's like it's 500 a year now. At first it was just 500, but now they do 500 a year. So now I'll be able to, you know what I'm saying? So shout out to me for the $500. I mean, it's whatever, you know what I mean? But the fact is 500 people is much better than $500.
You've got them investing, and that's the powerful thing about Robinhood. You know, right? I know Robinhood takes a lot of hits about them going down and all
it's
that.
Good for beginners.
But that's exactly my point. You talk about someone just starting out because it's so simple. And
the UI, it's really the UI.
It is.
The user interface is unmatched. I'm not gonna lie.
Nobody. Listen, I use the big. I'll be very transparent. I use Vanguard for most of my stuff because you can buy individual stocks in Vanguard. A lot of people don't know that. So I use Vanguard. I have a TD account, but I love Robinhood's UI, and I always tell beginners to start there just because I want to get them in the game. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? But you're giving us a lot of valuable information. The last question I have before we get off here is this, right? You talked about the transformation of yourself, and you talked about doing a lot from your mental to your health to your wealth and all that. Someone right now who's watching this or listening to this and they're sitting on the couch and they're starting from scratch. What is the first thing in terms of a recommendation we give them to like start working on themselves? What would be the very first thing?
First and foremost, stop lying. Stop lying. That's that. I'm gonna be totally honest, because that was what I was doing. You know what I'm saying? I was
lying to yourself. You mean?
Yeah, I was lying to myself. And the thing is, I would beat myself up too. So I would lie to make myself feel better when I'm around other people. So I would lie to myself internally when I'm around other people to make myself feel better. But when I'm by myself, I'm just shitting on myself. So what I tell people to do is start telling them the truth, but also understand that it's not the end of the world. So you don't need to be sitting there spending hours of the day shitting on yourself, because a lot of people do that, self-deprecating, because it's weird, but it kind of makes you feel better, because it's like I kind of deserve to be unsuccessful because of how lazy I am. So I get to reinforce, yo, you just a lazy fuck, man. Like, that's exactly why I'm not winning. And you're right, but you got to stop that shit. Like, you know the problem. So the fact that you acknowledge the fact that you're a lazy bum, you acknowledge the problem. Let's stop that. So what we do is we write down. We always write down what we're doing for that next day. Once you start, because a lot of people gotta understand, like, most bad habits are formed out of idle time. You feel me? You don't get a bad smoking habit by being busy all day. You just don't. Not being busy, but being productive all day, because it's two different things to be busy and productive. If you're productive throughout the day, you're going to be less likely to want to get into bad habits. Because that's pretty much what all unsuccessful people are. It's just a culmination of bad habits, and all successful people are just a combination of good habits. So what you do is you write down all of the good habits that you're going to, do in the next day. You're going to wake up and you're going to get active. You're going to wake up between 5 and 6 a.m., stretch, exercise, workout, have a nice breakfast that has a lot of vitamins in it, like, citrus fruits and things of that nature. You're going to get a jump on whatever projects that you're working on, you know what I'm saying? Or get a jump on getting those brainstorming ideas so you can get your project off the ground. And then you're going to hold yourself accountable throughout that entire time. So the reason why we write it down is because, first of all, there's more conviction behind it. Your memory, you start to commit to your memory a little bit better because you wrote it down. And then you can always refer back to it as opposed to trying to remember it. That's the reason why I have a whiteboard in my office. It's because I can always refer back to it. Everybody gets off track. Even the most organized person gets off track. That's the reason why you keep this productivity hack in your back pocket. Always write down what you're going to do. And then one thing I learned from my side of Twitter, people like Ari, Rogue Wealth, they taught me about systems and being able to record yourself doing whatever you do. And it does not matter if it's like an online business or whatever. It could literally be you recording the time that you take when you go to the gym, from the drive home to showering and all of that. Okay, it takes me an hour and 56 minutes from leaving my house to coming back to my house from the gym. So now we know that I have to make sure I stay within that time frame, and this is the time frame I need to do every day. I got 2 hours allotted to that. It's the same thing when it comes to morning routines, breakfast, brushing teeth, washing up, all of that stuff. Write down your systems. Have a full account of the time that you're using every day, and then you'll be able to audit your time. Like, okay, it's way too much time driving. That commute is crazy. Maybe I'll take public transport. Or it's way too much time walking to the gym. Maybe I'll drive. I need to get up a little bit earlier. You start to audit your time, and then you start to become more productive. All of those bad habits that you were able to do in between those times starts to get eliminated. Mm-hmm. You understand? So then you're able to, move forward in that. Backsliding, how to deal with that. Falling off the wagon, falling off as far as, not sticking to your diet, not sticking to your gym regimen. I always tell people this all the time. When you're ahead, don't let up. And if you're behind, don't beat yourself up. So if you're ahead, keep it going. Create a motivation that does not allow you to slack. Because that was one of the things that I did. It's so weird. Like, I would stop at the height of my success. I don't know why I did that shit. But I think it was like a lot of subconsciously, I was scared of the responsibility of my power. Like, what happens when my podcast is like the #1 podcast and there's 100, 2,000, 500,000 people waiting for my new podcast, and I got a cold or I can't make it? And
so you start self-sabotaging.
Self-sabotaging. So that's what that idle time does. So that's when you kill all the idle time, and you are dead tired by 10:30 at night, you wake up and do that all over again. Now you have a system. You start doing that. We already know 21 days forms a habit. You do that shit for a month, and then you compound, customize, compound, and customize. Before you know it, 6 months later, you don't even remember how you was wasting so much time. And this is something that is not a miracle. It's not gonna come super dumb easy, but this is the best way to do it. I'm not gonna tell you that you're not gonna have cravings. I'm not gonna tell you that you're not gonna go through withdrawals. I'm not gonna tell you that it's gonna be peachy keen. It's not. I went through withdrawals, cravings, all of that. You feel me? I went through all of those sacrifices. I was irritable when good things was happening. While everybody was happy in my house, I was just sitting there tight, like, you know what I'm saying? So
I got you.
I went through
all right, man. He got me motivated, Corey. I'm about to go jump on my Peloton tread real quick. Like, he done got me motivated out here. But I like it because what you said was very succinct. The first thing to do to get started is to stop lying. But that works on a financial level, that works on a spiritual level, a health level, whether we talking about you thinking about, trying to learn a new trade, whatever it is, just stop lying. You know what I'm saying? That's the name of the next book. Stop lying. Yeah. Listen,
being
man.
A liar.
Listen, man. Yeah. I just want to wish you continued success, man. Continue to share the information. Continue to do what you do. We appreciate your time, man. This has been one of my favorite episodes because, like I said, we're aligned in a lot of ways in terms of what we talk about solutions, and also the psychology behind it, man. And also, I appreciate your realness, like being transparent and being who you are, because a lot of people aren't. I don't care who you are as long as you're your authentic self. I appreciate that, and it comes through. Even though we're talking on here, whatever, it comes through as someone being their authentic self, man. So, Corey,
that's likewise on my end, man. I thank y'all. Every time I get one of these opportunities, I'm always glad. I would say humble. I'm not humble. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not a humble person, but I'm full of gratitude to have these opportunities because I remember when I was being cursed out for this shit, son. I remember when I felt like I was on an island with this information. It was just me and Hotep. Like,
listen, man, I resonate with that too. I talk to Corey about that all the time. Like someone being like in real estate and ownership and been doing that for 20 years when talking about it until the internet came around, man. I used to think like I was crazy. I used to think I was crazy because it was like, I was by myself. And then it's like, now I realize there's a whole world of people that look just like me who are talking about the same things, man. So I understand that. Corey, man, you got anything you want to say before we got here, good brother?
Yeah, man. I wanted to just say thank you, man, because you touched on a lot of topics that a lot of people wouldn't want to touch on. You know what I mean? Like you really took it to a place where our people can understand it because while it's important for the stories to get shared, it's also important for the information to get shared. And you're talking about the information and it's information for us. So I want to say thank you and I appreciate you.
Absolutely.
Man.
Absolutely.
Oh man, y'all. Yeah. Oh man, thank y'all, man.
Yeah, and to our audience, I'll make sure that I'll put his Twitter link. You already said that's his platform. So I'm gonna put his Twitter link in there so you can take a look at what he's got going on. Go purchase his products, look at his books. The brother's talking about accountability and how to get started and having a better life. It's not just about the money, like you said. It's an overall lifestyle, right? So make sure that you share this episode. And as we always say, it's not about how much money you make, it's about how much you keep. Game elevates, and we'll see you on the next episode. Peace.